Alright, let's get crazy ninja style. Yes, I actually did do a tutorial on ninjas, but that's not all that we're going to be focused on. A ninja is actually just a good little subject for us to be able to do kind of crazy flips, uh, back kicks, all sorts of jumping and spinning around and things like that. And generally, it's kind of a fast moving character, so we can kind of fake some of the motion by speeding things up or slowing things down, just having things move abruptly. I guess kind of typical of most animation in Japan, where they do their best to kind of get through 3 hours of animation that they have to do in a week. But so yeah, that's what we're going to be doing here, and let's look at this folder. It's probably inevitable that I'll have a part 3, but well, you never know. I won't commit to it yet. So let's get into part 1. The Flash 7 files will look a bit different than the Flash 8 files. They'll, I guess, kind of look more like a Samurai Jack thing, where there's not a lot of exterior lines and shading in them. Whereas the Flash 8 files will look something like this. I'm going to open up this Ninja Start file, which I think you guys should all do the same. And in fact, what I've got here is a background hidden over here that I'm not going to screen cap the entire time because it'll just make the movie kind of heavy. But, it's just something that we can kind of use in the end and make things look a little bit more official, like it's a real animation. But while we're just going through that, we're going to make that invisible, and you get to stare at the logo. And what else? Well, this is where this file begins and ends, actually, because what I'm going to do is just save this out as Ninja Jump. Okay, I've already got that open here, and I think you guys should do the same thing. And that way, what we'll do is just probably create multiple files depending on the action that's going to be taking place. And then maybe we'll merge them together, probably talk about laying things out. If you did have a kind of multi-scene animation, you want to bring things together. And most importantly, not most importantly, but there are some tricky things about exporting animation from Flash to QuickTime or other video formats. And we're going to be dealing with that. We're going to be working kind of within those constraints by not tucking animation inside of movie clips, because that is the problem right there is movie clip animation doesn't show up what is inside of it. So we'll be trying to avoid that, but also using filters. So we will be using movie clips, all right, if that makes sense. And there's always a workaround for everything. And actually, you know what? I would suggest that you look into getting some sort of cheap software that just records the playback of the SWF file, because if you did get that, you could actually put animation in movie clips, but we'll assume you're not going to spend a dime more than you need to if you wanted to export out to QuickTime, and which of course isn't always necessary. You can always just pop your SWF file up on the web, but I know some of you might want to contribute your work to sites like YouTube or Atom Films, I guess, and they maybe they don't take SWF files. So anyway, that is a long introduction for such a simple task ahead here. We're just going to be making this guy zip and jump around. Let's talk about the setup here. I'm going to select on one of these files, and you know what? I should go back and mention that if you don't have Flash 8 or Flash 8 Pro, you might want to just go ahead and dig out the Flash files from the Flash 7 folder. But let's look here. This movie clip has some filters hidden over here on it. A main drop shot, and actually let me just copy and paste this off of here so you can kind of see it without the whole rest of the ninja around it. This main drop shadow is accounting for that kind of half tone on the left side. So like if I were to take it off, disable it, you would see it like there. This other drop shadow, and this might not be obvious with it selected like that, but there's a nice little thin black line around that. That's actually not inside the artwork for the movie clip. Like if I were to double click inside of here, you would see that this is just a plain blue symbol. Nothing else going on with it. But it's this drop shadow here with a inner shadow, of course, and blur X, Y, 2, and distance of 1, which is making that nice little thin line around the side. So if I were to take this off and show it to you, then it goes back to just having absolutely no line around it. And Why do I have this other one disabled down here? Well, in case I want to switch where that line is at, okay, what I could do is just enable this one and then maybe leave it on, or I could take this one off, just depending on just how I want that cast on there. Right now, and how this Ninja is currently standing, I kind of like it so that this bottom part just blends in a bit more with the body and this other shadow right there. So I don't have it enabled at that point. The rest of the body is the same, except I do have all of them enabled at this point. And what we're going to be doing for a lot of this animation is trying to make things as fluid as possible. Okay, so instead of going with a Ninja setup where we had different parts for the arms, the legs, the torso. What I like to do is experiment with having just one kind of Gumby body here that we'll constantly be making duplicates of, and hopefully that'll make things a lot more elastic, and it should look less like a flash, or I should say a bad flash animation where you kind of see the robot movement of every little piece of the arm and whatnot. So that'll be a little departure from some of the other tutorials as well. And let me do this. Let me just show you guys. Yeah, I'll double click inside of here right now. I do actually have one line right here, and that's just kind of the price we pay for this particular setup, because I do want to make it so that you can kind of clearly see that this is part of the body that goes up in there. And at other points, and we'll keep kind of hitting on this when we make new parts, is there's actually, this isn't a line, it's actually just a break in the artwork. Okay, so just kind of I kind of made this piece by just bringing that little part right over to there, up onto the edge, and you can see that when I jump back up here to scene 1 and the filter gets applied, it just makes this kind of soft fade out right there, because it does try to put in that line. It doesn't have much space to do it, I guess, and so that's why that looks the way it does. Now, if you are using Flash 70 or you don't have these filters, of course things don't look as good for you. They look a little bit like this, all right, just very flat. So what I would consider doing is maybe just kind of going along with that look, or if you want to, and maybe I'll do this in the final versions for y'all anyway, is just take the ink bottle and just fill it in like that. But kind of the reason we're not doing that is because that's just kind of one more element inside of each one of these pieces of artwork that we'll have to deal with when we are quickly making duplicates of one symbol after another, because we're going to be doing frame by frame animation here. So the less we have to do each time we duplicate something, the better. And, speaking of duplicating these guys, I would strongly suggest you guys set up a hotkey for duplicate symbol, alright? That's going to be making a unique instance of this movie clip in the library, alright? So it's, you duplicate it and then you can edit it, and it's not going to affect the movie clip before it, because that's going to be something I'm going to be going to a lot here. Just basically as we start keyframing here, just hitting up, for me it is Control D or Apple D, alright, and you're just going to kind of magically see this. I'm not going to worry about trying to go and name it body 2, body 3, because I always end up forgetting anyway, and it's just one extra stall. What I'm going to let happen will just be, I'll just let the Flash decide what the next number will be. So if I were to just keep doing it, it's going to be body 2, body 3, and so on. And you guys don't need to be concerned actually with my specific numbering for these bodies anyway. It's going to be going very fast, and I guess kind of organic with this. We're not going to focus too much on little things like that. So let me get this off of here, and we're just about set up to animate this guy. Let me just move over here. There are actually a couple other symbols included in here, not too many. Let me take them off of here, and what I'll do is create a layer just called miscellaneous parts, and we may or may not use those. Well, I know we will use them, but that's just kind of what that layer is usually for. And I'll lock it up for right now, though. Let's lock up this layer, and let's give us some more room to work with. So what I'm going to do is just select all these layers up top here and just go to Insert Frame. And what we'll have this guy do is just move this the front leg backwards some, okay, because he's kind of standing forward. And then we'll have him crouch down, reach back to grab his sword, and then he'll just kind of jump up really quick and off screen, and that will be our first little task here. So let's do this. Let's make our first keyframe. You can hit F6. You better start doing that because you'll be wasting a lot of time if every time you go to insert keyframe. Boy, it just takes forever to do that. Alright, once there, what you'll do is, let's just select this whole guy here, alright, and actually let's not select the shadow. In fact, we won't have to do much animation on that shadow for quite a bit, so let's just lock up that layer. I'm not going to be too strict about, every little movement of this guy. His shadow has to reflect that, but for big movements, it certainly will. So, that looks like it's still selected. There we go. Okay. So what we're going to do is with the free transform tool here, that's a hotkey of Q. Let's just move them up just a little bit like that. We'll be doing a lot of this kind of bending and squashing. That's not necessarily a bad thing if we change his mass a little bit, not too much. And let's also bring his head up just maybe 1 pixel, so we're just going to select that. And let's do the exact same thing one more time here. So this is just a little motion right before the main stuff happens. So he's going to kind of come up like that, and then over here on this 4th frame, let's start to alter his body. So what I'm going to do is, well, I guess the first few times I'll go the slow way. Go to duplicate symbol. Oh, by the way, another great hotkey will be swap symbol, but probably later on, not so much now. So duplicate symbol and a body copy. That's what that gets called. Let's now double click inside of here. I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can get a hold of this guy. And let's just start to get him into that crouching position. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. By the way, I do just have this black arrow here. No other fancy tools. And what you might have to do is hold down the control key to or option key on the Mac and create another vector point, because at some point you're going to have a little problem with these legs right here, okay, because you want to have some sort of independent bend instead of just having one big arch like I started to get there. So let's see, I kind of lost track of where this started at. And you know what, I'm going to also put a just a point right over here. So just click dragging out with the option key or control key held down. That way I can just kind of make this leg. There we go. So it's kind of almost got like a little Elvis thing going on at the moment. You know what, I'm going to put a little bit more of a bend on this. Alright. And let's think about this belt right here. Probably if this leg is coming up, this will go up a couple pixels. We'll make this little tassel or tie go up just a bit as well. And let's move the head up just a bit more. In fact, you know what we'll do is we'll just select this whole frame right here. And let me zoom back out a bit. What I'll do is free transform this as well. So we're going to kind of keep him moving up a bit. And you know what, I would even go as far as to say let's squeeze him in just a tad. Not much though. Alright, we don't want him to really seem like he's coming off his mark too much. But just, let's see, bump, bump. I bet this could go up some. And you know what, let's make it seem like, well no, let's just go ahead and get on to the next frame. Alright. So we're at frame 5. Let's zoom back in and duplicate this leg. I'll do it another time here. Zoom on in. And now let's really get this leg moving. in a second we'll get those arms popping out, but let's see how this looks. Okay. Coming up like that. Let's start to make him feel like he's coming down a bit already. So let's move this head down some. Let's go ahead and adjust the belt. What we're going to do is duplicate this. That's going to be belt copy, and double click inside of here, and let's just straighten it out a bit. Alright. I need to zoom in and pull this out some. There we go. Eventually we'll get that curving down all the way. So we'll move that as well. So let's see. Looks like he's floating a bit too much. That's just kind of one of the problems with doing just a big giant free transform. Let me just straighten mine out. Just get 1 pixel down. I'm going to kind of keep my eye on this bottom leg here. I don't want that to float upward or down. There we go. I am, though, going to scale them up one more time. I know I'm going to have to readjust for that. Same problem again, though. And let's do this. Let's go ahead and just make this one leg kind of bend out a little bit more. Like so. Oops. Well, I got the wrong one that time, but that's alright. I wasn't on the final frame. Just get a close approximation to what I'm doing. There we go. Let's bend this one out. So on both of those past 2 frames there, just bending this out a little bit more. So it's kind of in like a mosey pose. About ready to saddle something up. Alright. Hit F6, make another keyframe out that way, and this time what we'll do is let's start with the belt first. I'm going to duplicate this and just bend it down like so. Maybe make it actually go down a bit. Let's take this belt loop, I'm going to curve it a little. And let's start to get the head moving down too. We might have, let's see, should we have done it a little bit more on that past frame? That's probably alright. Okay, just kind of looking at this. Let's duplicate the body. And let's move that back. Move this. Move that. Let's actually try to move the whole waist down a little bit. This might get a little tricky with that line right there. And let's actually start to also think about these arms. We'll start to pull them out a bit. So these points up here, I'm just going to drop them down some. And let's maybe make it seem like this elbow is starting to come out a bit. Like in general, we'll start to see more of these arms just as he begins to take them out from totally behind him, kind of midway around his waist. And let's see, move this out a bit more. Looks like we lost a big chunk of his leg. Let's just try to puff that out a bit more. Okay, that's good, except for this one little line staying in place, and let's move that down some too. If you get some deal like this happening, just close that in. All right. Let's make sure he is staying in place. Looks like he is. And should we move this down more? Let's move his head down just a little bit more. Okay, hit F6. And let's think more about getting those arms out as well. Let's kind of make his sword start to tilt down a bit because it's kind of hitting the ground back there. And in fact, you know what, I'm just rotating it, but I'm going to go back a frame and rotate this one some too. So maybe it's almost like his leg is pushing against the back of it there, or the front, or top, however you define a sword. Okay, and let's see. Let's make sure that we duplicate this body, and let's duplicate this belt. We'll make it dip down just a bit more, like that. Oops. And this belt tie, let's just rotate it and bring it down some. Okay, so let's get this leg coming out a bit more this way, and we'll get this leg starting to actually hit back on the ground now. And these two legs should be kind of symmetrical now at this point. So we'll get that one down that way. And in my version, maybe in your version too, there's a bit of a connection point between this arm and that leg. We'll have to deal with that. And if it does help you could actually just temporarily get rid of that line. Maybe I'll do that for right now. While I'm starting to bring these arms out. What I'm going to do is just creating another point there. I'm going to create a point here and just pull that up into that spot. And two, if you get into a situation where you're kind of fighting the vector art, where you have like these little pieces here, you could just go and do like a mass selection and just backspace it out or just delete it out, and then go in and just kind of reconnect these dots together. Usually best to do that with the snap tool on. There you go. Now you're back to like kind of getting more manageable vector artwork. I'm just getting something like that. We'll take a look at it in a second. Let me go in with the. It's actually a dark blue line, or is it a dark blue line? I think it is for that a little part right there. So on the layer above, I'm just going to create a line right down that way again. Maybe do something like that with it. That's kind of weird. Makes it look like a right angle. Huh. The filters can do some kind of weird things at times. Okay, let's see. Looks like that leg isn't exactly hitting the ground yet. Let's bring it down just a little bit more. We'll have to get his head down too. By the way, there is a shadow under here in case you didn't notice that earlier. It's just a semi-transparent circle. Let's rotate this sword some, and let's start to let's go back over here to this side of things and just peel out this arm. Maybe we can do a little bit of a delay on this one, so this arm comes out just first. Okay, so let's look at this. Not my favorite thing right there, but we can live with it. And these things are sped up. You never notice those little tiny things. Alright, so that'll go back. Yep. Alright, I like it so far. We do need to show that he actually has a hand, as opposed to what we're doing with the feet here. He's kind of got those Mega Man feet where you just you assume he's got some feet under there, but you don't actually see him. Okay, I did actually copy this hand off of this layer and then just selected down here and pasted it, just in case you missed that. Alright, when you do paste something onto a layer, it's going to be at the top by default. What you might need to do is go to Arrange. These are great hotkeys as well. Send backward, or you can send all the way to the back. Alright, in that case, you might actually have to send it to the front then. Bring to front. So, again, those are nice little hotkeys to just get used to using. Okay. Let's hit F6. We're on to frame number 8. Let's duplicate the body again, and I think this the belt will probably stay the same, but we'll lower it down some, and then let's just take this other belt tie and we'll just move it over there like that. He's still kind of in his wind up or wind down for jumping. So I moved the head down a bit, and let's do this. Let's get this other arm out this way. We'll get this one out, and let's make him start to crouch down even more here. All right, we'll assume that these feet are touching the ground, though, so we'll kind of leave those alone a bit. But we can make this kind of come up like so. Actually, we could bring the, I guess, the kind of general waist area down some, too. Yeah, like that. See how that's happening. Alright, back into this. Let's just take a big chunk of him off. Just like I was doing before. Just kind of a destroy and create again. Another nice thing about a ninja is kind of assume that he's got some loose robes on, so we can get away with kind of changing the mass of things every so often. Kind of hard to tell where the thumb is on this hand. Is it that you could flip it and then suddenly the thumb's maybe there, or is it still over there? Who knows? Doesn't have to be perfect. We can tuck most of that inside of there. Let's just see how this is looking though. Okay, okay. It's not too bad. Let's do this. Let's bring this belt down just a little bit more. I'm gonna widen it out just a tad bit too. And maybe scale that inward. There we go. Okay, let's not forget to move something that was previously moving, meaning that sword. So that's, there we go. I'm going to move it slightly over this way too. One little thing we might want to adjust now is have this tie part of the bandana tie just actually be in the back of that arm. Okay, so you might want to just arrange it back there now. It's never too late though. Okay, on to frame number 9, F6. Let's duplicate the body, and what to think about here? Well, obviously the arms are going to come out more, and soon we're going to start to dip this the actual head downward. Right now he's kind of kept his focus going out this way while he's been crouching down, but we will alter that shortly too. Okay, but this is the main big movement for now. Let's figure out why I'm stalling for a second. Computer wants to, for some reason, open up the, there we go, help documents. Why is that? Okay. going to do is shift a little bit of this clothing down this way. As he gets to be more squat, there's going to be more weight of clothing down here. And still continuing with these legs, though. A little less than before, though. Not too big a movement. Because we got a few more frames, so we don't want to kind of overdo it, I guess. But let's make his belt go scale out just a bit. Let's just see how this looks. Okay, so he's kind of opening up a bit. Let's move that arm out this way. Now you'll actually see this arm over here. So let's go and just copy and paste that over that way. Bump. Oh, and you know what? I guess we missed out putting it over there too, didn't we? Let's do that. I'm going to make this arm a little bit smaller. One of my favorite hotkeys, scale and rotate. It's something that I've set up. By the way, in case you just totally don't know, keyboard shortcuts, always look for those. But where is the slow way to get to that? Symbol, no. See, you forget so quick. Rotate, scale and rotate, there it is. And let's bring this down a little bit. Let's bring the head down as well. Let me kind of just take a look here and make sure that this head is moving at a kind of consistent rate downwards. Okay, I think that's alright. F6, I'm on frame 10 now. Let's duplicate the body. Jump on in here. This time, the arms will kind of match each other a bit more. I guess they were in the previous frame too. And again, just kind of bringing a little bit more his whole body downward into this area. Even though we're seeing him front on like this, so it's kind of hard. But just keep in mind that because he's bending over, there's going to be more, you know, just general body in this whole little area. Okay, let's scale out this belt some. Move that over that way. Head's going to come down. And did I rotate the sword yet? Nope, I did not. All right, now let's talk about the eyes and this other bandana right here. Just like the belt, this is just this one little chunk right here. So when we duplicate it, it'll be very easy to alter. So let's just duplicate it and double click inside here. And what we're going to do is make it so that I guess this whole bandana kind of just starts to disappear as his face dips inward. As his, you know, kind of neck moves downward into his body, so you'll be seeing a little less of it and be kind of traveling down, you know, this sphere that is his head. So something like what I just did would happen. And let's do this. Let's take a look at that without the eyes on both frames, actually. So not a big movement there, but you can see that it's a little less wide at that point. So let me undo that. Get his eyes back. So we'll have to move his eyes down, and then let's also, well, let's just duplicate him and consider what's going to happen here. We're going to start to see less of his the white of his eyes. So let's go ahead and move this down like so. And there are a couple symbols in here. I should explain that. In fact, I should even label these names. Pupils. Let's call these whites. When I was doing some test animations before, I was just finding that instead of having separate parts for all these different elements here and constantly going into duplicating and changing those, it's just going to be easier. I decided to have them all kind of in one place. But the pupils I left as one symbol just because, well, it's a circle and it's not going to really change that much. And let's bring these in a bit too. Something like that's going to happen. And I'd say with this bandana, I could probably make it a little bit wider there. Or not. How about just more arced downward? Okay. Let's hit F6. And let's see. Let's keep the head moving downward. Well, I'm going to move everything, but then when I think about this bandana, if it were in the back of the head, that would kind of move upward a bit. Let's duplicate the bandana as well. So we'll just kind of keep working on this. So that's going to become thinner. And actually probably start to see less of it at all over there. Let's move these eyes down. I'm going to duplicate them. Oops, what's going on there? How did I miss that? There we go. And I think for the bottom whites of the eyes now, what I'm just going to do is select them like that and then just chop out that part right there. And I might just take a line, just cut it through the white of the eye there so I can just select out that little part and then delete off the line. And then what I'll do is select just every layer over this way and just kind of tilt this down some. Kind of got to be careful doing that. I mean, it's quite possible to mess things up a lot too. Suddenly the eyes don't look like they're, correct. Let me get back inside here. Let's move up the pupils a bit too. I'm just going to move this one little arc out some that way. In fact, let me undo that because it didn't really move the way I thought it would. What I want to do is move, there we go, that. Okay. The only weird thing about this is it almost seems like the eyes are getting wider as they scale down, or as they tilt down. So let's make sure that that doesn't happen. I don't see any reason for them to be getting wider. That was wide, like a wide load, not white. Okay, there we go. Probably a little bit better. And did we duplicate this body yet? That says body 7, and that means no. So let's click on this, duplicate it, and let's keep these arms moving up. I might actually leave a little bit of something like this going on right down there at the bottom. I think that looks kind of cool. Just a little weight of the bottom of the sleeve. And what else can we do here? Probably by now I could take that out. We don't need to see that little hook there anymore. I do just kind of want to keep things moving just a tad bit here. Like I was saying in the beginning, I think that's going to be what separates, this animation from looking like other Flash animations that don't really kind of move as one piece, but instead move as, 5 or 10 different little pieces. Let's move this up some, And let's just go back and forth here. I'm going to move this or scale this out a bit. If you haven't figured it out yet, by the way, the keyboard shortcut for scrubbing through your animation is, or just stepping through it, I should say, are the greater than or less than keys, or also known as, commonly, the comma and the period. Okay, let's tilt this sword a bit. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tilt this sword just a bit more, and I'm going to tilt it a bit more on this frame, and so on, just so it kind of comes down a bit quicker, or further, I should say. And let's zoom out here and just take a look at things. Comes up a little bit, starts to move that one leg, bum, bum, bum. Moves it back, comes out. Cool. Okay, F6, and let's duplicate everything up. And the first thing we'll do is change this around a little bit. Just slightly move this up some. Not much though. And for this hand right here, in my copy, it is behind that sword stick a little bit, or the handle. What I'm going to do is just bring it up so it is actually above that. And I'm just rotating that like so. And let's keep the head going down just slightly, not too much anymore. Duplicate the bandana. It'll actually seem like it's tilting a bit more than it's actually going downward. Might try just squeezing that down a little. I'm going to duplicate the eyes though, and just select right here. Curving that up, and probably just doing the same thing over here. I want to make sure I just get only this half. And let's make it so you can see even less of the whites of the eyes. So just pulling that up, pulling this up. Let's get back over here. Actually, let's see how significant of a move that was. Let's go back here. Let's take the eyes down just a bit more. Okay, moving over to the hand. Actually, let's do one more keyframe after that. Alright, so we're on 13. And moving the sword down just a little bit. Zoom in. I'm going to duplicate this hand. Alright, so that is a hand copy. Double click inside of here. And let's just delete out at least these two fingers here. In fact, we'll move this down, so I'm going to move this over this way. Pull that down, pull that over here. Oops, didn't want to move the whole thing. But obviously that should kind of look like he's now grabbing the sword. Alright, so let's just see. Like so. And you know what, I think to make it even better looking, let's duplicate this body. And now that he's gotten hold of that, we can kind of pull this down some. Maybe even arc this a bit more like that. This arm, let's continue to move back just a little bit. And the legs, they'll keep doing their thing. Okay, but now that he's actually gotten hold of this, let's, we're trying to get hold of it, I should say. Just tilted it down some. So let's see. Yeah, so it should look like that, the difference between those two frames there. Let's move this arm up some. And in fact, you know what, let's make it so that he actually makes a fist on this other hand, because he's about to jump up, so it's a little bit too casual if he's, you know, just kind of got those fingers flowing out that way. So I'm going to duplicate this hand as well. And as I guess assuming if this were actually a thumb, that'll just kind of fold into the rest of the hand here. So actually what I'm going to do is just chop all that out and do something like that. Okay, it doesn't seem like much, but now we can smooth it a bit. Maybe do something like that if we want to get fancy. But as you can see, you can hardly even notice I'm up here at 135%. So back here at 100%, you're not going to see much of that. It looks like looks like he's kind of sliding out a bit that way. Let me double click inside of here and just bring this in some. There we go. In fact, that slide actually happens on the frame before, but we won't worry about it too much. Just kind of like a magician's sleight of hand will make everything else kind of keep happening instead. Okay, so just moving that head down a bit. Let's move this down some. In fact, I think at this point, let's make it so that we really can't see those eyes much. Duplicate this. Just kind of move these guys down. Like so. Let's put a keyframe right here. And what to do? Let's duplicate the body. I'm going to move this arm down just a little bit so you really kind of get the sense that he has actually grabbed hold of that sword. You know, actually right here, maybe let's just bend this a bit too. So now that he's made that fist back there, there's a little bit of motion as he's about to kind of collapse his arms down and push upward. Okay, so this is kind of the easing in motion of that. I definitely want people to feel like they're seeing now that sword actually in his grip, in his control. Okay, so something like this. Where now people go, oh, I got you. Now I see why he put his arms back there. See, that might be a little bit too abrupt. Let's move the hand and the sword back that way some. Yeah, something like this is more what I'm going for. I guess we haven't moved that in a while, have we? Have we moved that? Let me just thumb through here. Like I was saying before, you gotta kind of make sure if you're gonna keep moving something that or if you move it, keep moving it. It looked like it actually kind of got really out of control there. Let's see, it starts here, it's kind of moving in this pattern. Let's do this. Let's just make it start to fall behind him. Like that. And what that'll actually end up doing is hopefully people can get a better sense of the actual arc of his legs there, that he's kind of powering them up to jump. So let's make sure this is Yeah, okay, that's definitely a duplicate from the one before. So let's double click in here one more time. And now what we'll do is really bring these up. Let's move the head down. And I'm going to have to actually move this forward in front of the belt. There we go. I'm not really sure what's become of the head shadow underneath here. I might actually have to click on the wireframe to see where that kind of crept off to. Yeah, it's this circle right here. What I think I'll do though is move this down so you can actually see it. And I might need to, let's see, do that a couple frames before as well. Just so it doesn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. And I'm going to move this arm down a little bit, like I was saying before. Now that he's kind of made that fist, he is getting ready to really jump up. Let's scale him down a bit this way. Like I was saying before, we do kind of want to avoid these legs shifting too much, but I think that actually works. So let's go on to the next frame. And on this one, we'll start by, well, actually, let's start by messing with the body. Duplicate that. So again, just making these really go up this way. And the arms are starting to get into more of a curve, although I'm not going to really ever show them going straight down until this guy's actually up off the ground. Okay. I think at this point, let's, well, we can move this down, but I'm going to also just duplicate this and make it so you can't see any of the eye there. We'll just get rid of those all together. Oops, didn't mean to get rid of that. In fact, you know what, I can just get rid of these two bottom layers, and then we'll just kind of curve this like so. You know what, actually, let's do this. Let me just scale this down some, so you can hardly even see it now. Let's take the whole head, move that down, be sure we get this with it. So let's see, we're just kind of getting that down. So it's almost like his head is now just right in the groin area. But ninjas can do that. And I think we're probably ready to just have this guy shoot up in the air now. Let me just play through him. Let's see. I'll kind of play this back at your frame rate. Steps back, gets his sword, and there we go. Okay. And here's where we can really have some fun with blurring things out a bit. Let's do this, though. We will blur this guy, but let's duplicate it one more time, the body, and we'll kind of move this up even more, move this up. It's not too crucial that we get this part 100% right, because like I said, we'll blur this out a bit. but just so it still feels like something different has happened. Oops. And as for this, let's just get rid of that little part. The bandana, well, let's try this. Let me scale it down a bit and then actually move it behind the head like so. Alright, and then I'm going to take the whole head, move that down, and maybe just scale it a bit like that. So it's kind of like you're seeing just the very top of it. Like that. Okay, now for the sword. Let's move that over that way. Actually, let's tilt the hand. Something like that. Move the fist. This little piece right here we could probably move up like that. Actually, that's kind of a nice pose. I'm not sure I want to destroy that with this whole bunch of blurs. Let me think about this. Well, I'm thinking, let's scale him down just a bit. Well, we'll kind of proceed how I was planning. For the sword, what I'm going to do is duplicate it, and we'll just leave that as is, the file name. Sometimes even I forget. And for this part right here, what I'm going to do is just copy it, just this white part right here. I'm going to break this apart just by going to break apart. Okay, it does have a stroke around it, but I'm just going to double click on it and delete it. And then I'm just going to take this white part here and do something like this. And then just kind of move it back over that way. Once that you do have it in place, I'm going to convert this to a symbol by hitting F8. All right, we'll go with symbol 1, why not? And then we will, over here in filters, blur this. We do have your filters, and just get something like that happening. We kind of could have done that on the previous frame too, just to show that obviously it's kind of moving really quick. Should we blur this guy? Well, we'll do a little bit of one. So just be sure you select this drop shadow before you add a blur, so it knows to put that blur down kind of in the stacking order below it. Just going to take it up on the Y and take it nowhere on the X-axis. Alright, like so. Yeah, I mean, that should work. Because you still get a good feeling for the pose, because a few things aren't blurred out. And then on this one, we'll have this guy just really skyrocket upward. Which actually will take probably just starting with the new pose back from our basic one. I think that's probably the easiest thing. So let's do this. Well, or is that easier? I don't know. It's probably 6, 1/2 dozen of the other. Let's just do this. I guess I will just work off this one pose right here. So I'm going to, on this frame, duplicate it, and let's move the head out of the way. Actually, we'll kind of move a bunch of stuff out of the way that might not need. Kind of recompile them here, I guess. The sword, though, we'll have this flipped down this way. Alright, so he will just, his whole body pose will be going upward. Alright. Let's duplicate this sword, though, and one thing I know we can do here is just alter this guy. And actually, you know what, without taking the blur off, let's duplicate this. Let me just call this sword blur. I said earlier, I don't care about those file names too much, but I do care about things being in these libraries called symbol 1 or symbol 2. Because I have a lot of other flash files where the name is already being used. So I'll just do something like that, because if you did kind of whip that sword around from that place to over here, that would make sense. So you kind of like that. Okay, so have we duplicated this yet? I think we have. Yeah. Alright, so we can change this. Let's put the body up here, And oh, I want to keep wanting to duplicate that now. Double click inside of it. What we'll do is just take this leg, go down like that. That would look kind of cool to have one leg upward, but I think still I'm going to go with what I planned on doing. Something like this. So we're going to have all these points in his body all kind of leading downward. And we could probably scale him inward and down some. You know what, on this side of him, we'll tuck in this arm backward. Okay, so just doing something like this. In fact, we can just probably close off that and we'll just take a stroke, a line, and just pop that right there. I might have, well, actually that looks pretty good. I was about to say I might have lost shape of him entirely, but that probably works. Okay, his belt is over here. Let's put that back on him. We'll flip it vertically. If you don't know where that is transform, flip vertically, pop that over there, and let's make sure he's holding on to this sword. Probably now at this point he's got a real grip on it. Actually, I guess we should take his whole body up this way, so we can at least leave room for him to actually be holding on to that sword. Let's just use this fist pose that we already created. So something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And let's see, that's his little tail for the belt. So we'll put that back on him. Made its way back to the front again. And let's see, this shadow for the head, I think what we'll do is put that right up top there, and then let's take his head. I'm going to flip this horizontally, maybe put that up here and arrange it to the back, and then for that shadow I'm going to make that a bit bigger. So maybe what this can do, kind of translate into him like looking upward. Let's see. To get this right, I think I'll have to get into the body here and just chop that off and maybe do something like this with it. It's like maybe that would be that back part of the bandana, and then let's do this. Let's duplicate this symbol. You're not going to see much of this if it works out like I hope. Something kind of like that, where maybe that's just where his eye would be, kind of like in that region right there. Let's see if we can do something like this to maybe give that impression. It'd be tough. And actually, I'm probably overthinking this whole thing. It's just one frame anyway. Okay, let's move all this over that way. For some reason, I just feel like I want to make this a bit bigger. One bandana. And Maybe it's because it's not blurred out like everything else. That might look a little bit nicer too. Something like that. It's a tough call whether or not to have it up or down. Kind of like it either way. We'll go down for a little bit. Now his shadow actually would be moving, so let's go and just hit F6 right here. Oops, didn't mean to flip it horizontally, or vertically I should say. This might be one of the few things we could get away with motion tweening. Just kind of put a keyframe out this way, and then in the middle here, just going to create motion tween. And then on this one, we'll make it maybe 50% what it currently is. And then as well, select it, and then just take the alpha down over here. So it just kind of goes away. We can do a blank keyframe after this. F7, or insert a blank keyframe. And let's see how this is playing out. Okay, what I'm going to do is actually, well, I'm going to keyframe one more over this way, so I'm going to hit F6, and then move them up, move this sword inward like so. I'm going to duplicate the sword and take this out of it. Okay, so it's just like that. And then with the entire sword, what I'll do is blur it downwards like that. And then I'm going to select this whole guy here. All right, so I got them all. Just going to hit F8. We'll just call this Ninja Upwards. Okay. I'm going to now copy and paste this over this way. And I think what I'll do is duplicate it. Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, duplicate it. So we'll just call this Ninja Upwards, maybe 2. And then take this out, the sword, and then I'm going to blur this whole thing like so. And then even scale it like that. Oh, no, not that much. And then just take the alpha down on it. Like it's something like that going on. And then I'll just move this behind him. So you just get this nice little kind of after lines of where he was, I guess. Let me move him over here for a sec. Okay. It's hard to tell whether or not that's going to look better on top or in front. We'll go with it right there. Maybe even moving up a little bit more. I'll hit F6 over this way. Just take him off of there. Then take the alpha back up a bit on this. Move it up here. And then will motion tween that. All right. Just scale it inward, upward like so. So it should be just kind of like that, just a little something left over. Yeah. Let's see how it looks. I'm going to drop the frame rate down to 4 frames per second so you guys can kind of watch this along with me. And he winds up. Pretty good. It's okay, I guess. Grabs his sword. The only thing that's kind of bothering me is where his sword ends up right here. Let me double click inside of here, and there we go. So now you can kind of really feel that it's there. You know what, now that I did that, I'm going to actually kind of do a flip-flop here and just copy this and put it inside of this second copy of that. So I'll just paste that on in there. We'll see how that looks. Okay, go buddy, go. Hurry up. Alright. Probably move this up a little bit more. And in fact, actually, since it's so long, let's go ahead and just put one more frame after this and then just punch that up there. Okay. Okay, even though we haven't really done that much, let's add a bit of sound to it just so you guys don't have to stay waiting to figure out how to do that, although it is incredibly easy. Go and do this, add one more layer up this way. In fact, you know, let's delete off this layer called miscellaneous parts. We didn't really get to using those too much, and we'll just call this sounds. Alright, if you have an MP3, whatever it is, or some other audio file, WAV file would work too, AIFF. If it's just floating around your desktop or whatever folder it's in, for example, this is my desktop back here, all I'm going to do is just drop it onto the stage. That's one way of getting it into the library. Another way would just be to go to import to stage or import to library. If you do import to stage, what it should do is put it on a frame of the timeline. If you import it to the library, what you'll find is that with your library open right there, you will be able to locate it in here, and then you can drag it onto the stage like so, and that's what it would look like if it went straight to the stage. You get a little indication of the wave of the file, and you get a few options down here. You can do an event, which means that the audio will be triggered as soon as the frame, as soon as the time marker hits this frame right here. Okay, regardless of whether or not it travels past that point, first frame is all it takes to trigger it. If you do have it set to stream, that will lock in the timeline to exactly where you see that wave right there. Okay, so for animation, I think it's probably always going to be best if you set these things to stream, all right? Because there are circumstances where the audio can fall out of sync with the animation, but that won't ever happen, okay, if you have this set to stream here, all right? And let's just take a look at where that swoosh is occurring. It's kind of right there, so I'll actually have to start it right back that way. And at any time, you could just put, you could hit F7, for example, and then just drag down from here. If it is already in your library, you'll just always get a, you know, little indication of the file name right there, and like that. So there's a few other things you can do if you just, if you have some audio that you want to manipulate a bit. You can, actually, if that wasn't clear, with the frame of the audio selected, just go down here to Edit, and you could fade it in. Okay, so you could do something like this where you get these just time markers here, move them up and down, one for each audio channel. Just going to hit cancel on that. Let's see, what are the other, we won't talk about those, not that interesting. Repeat, if it is set to, actually stream or event, I was about to say if it's set to event, but you actually, what you can do is you can repeat it here as well for stream, and you'll just see that, oh, look at that, it's I got many waves now instead of that one little half-a-second clip that I had before. That's good if you find some looping audio on the web. You could set it to loop through there. Flashkit.com has a lot of sound loops that people have contributed. Let's see, if you do bring in the audio, go over here to your publish settings. It's generally always going to be a good idea to override sound settings and just make sure that it is set to MP3 audio. Oftentimes people will bring in these big, huge audio clips that are AIFF or you know, WAV, and they aren't really compressed. And this compresses it further, even if it is an MP3, because I brought in an MP3, but now this is going to take it down to 16 kilobytes per second, which is very small. Oftentimes what I'll do, though, is set that to 24, because 16 is pretty much unbearable. It loses all kind of bass, the audio. But usually what you download off the web is set to something like 128 or 160, at least for a music file. Speaking of publish settings, I'm going to set this JPEG up there. But okay, Well, the next thing I was planning on doing, but I'm going to have to get sidetracked here a little bit, is I was going to show you guys how to take the animation you already have and put it into another symbol, just if you wanted to use that to organize things. I'm still going to show that to you, but the reason I was going to do it was to as a way of just kind of getting your animation ready to export out to QuickTime, but I just noticed on doing some tests of my own, I was getting some weird issues with that. So let's do this. Well, we'll do it one way. I'll show it to you. You just go to select all the frames, go to copy frames, go to insert new symbol, set it to being a graphics. We'll just call this all animation. Okay. And that would go into your library. Actually, well, first, once you get into that symbol, just paste the frames in. Okay. And then it's in your library over here. You can like kind of click on it. Well, usually you can. There we go. And it'll show you what's going on with it. But it doesn't actually get put on your timeline, I should say. You do actually have to drag it off of from the library. So let's go and create another layer, and we'll just drag this out over to there. Let's see where that end up at. Okay. Oh, it ended up somewhere. Where'd it go to? Let's try it one more time. Okay, there it is. And usually what I would do is just kind of line it up with what I'd created previously, and then select the layers that I had before and trash them. Okay, and then if it is a graphic clip, you can set it to, instead of loop, probably play once is all you need. Okay, and then you can scrub through here and see what's going on. Now, I just had some issues exporting to QuickTime, and they looked exactly like that. For some reason, some of the symbols were moving, some weren't, and you can see just scrubbing through the timeline that problem occurs. So, instead of using this method to kind of organize things, let's undo a little bit. Alright, I'm going to get back to the point before there we go, deleted those layers. I'm just going to take out that graphic clip and show you guys instead what you might want to do to keep things organized is just insert in a folder onto the layer. So we'll just call this now Ninja Jump, alright? And then you actually have to go and select these layers. You can shift select them like this, and then just drag them up into that folder. Then you can just collapse the folder, and the nice thing about that is you don't actually have to see the keyframes for that anymore, but you do get to see the animation on the timeline. Alright, so then of course we could just proceed on to something else, create a new layer, call this, I don't know, Ninja down again, like that, drag that inside there, then work in that layer, okay, and that would keep things nice and pretty for us. Let me just delete that though, yep. Let's delete it. But let's just take a look really quickly at how we would export this out to QuickTime. You just go to Export Movie. So you get prompted to name the movie. I'm going to just temporarily put it in this folder that we've been put these files in, but I'm not going to leave this in there for you guys. It's pointless. You can just look at the SWF file. But after you click Save, it will say Export QuickTime Video, and you want this to be 24-bit color. I'd go ahead and just leave this at whatever size you're working at, okay? So one thing to note there is that if you did try to make it smaller than its current size, it's probably going to not look as crisp. You might get some weird kind of pixelation issues. So whatever you're working at, leave it at that. Quality should always be up as high as it can be. Sometimes people overlook this. And then for the compressor, just leave that at animation. Then click OK, and let's look at it getting created. And there we go. We'll just open it up here. All right, and let's see. There he is. There's our guy. Notice the all those nice looking filters are on there. Goes on up and out. And I guess the key thing to remember here then is what you see is what you get in terms of this top timeline here. All right. So when I put things in that graphic clip, you notice how they got all weird. So I guess if filters are involved, that method is no longer the thing to do anymore. And let me just show that to you one more time. If you'll notice that when I do scrub through here, it is the stuff with the filters that are getting kind of loopy because they're just not moving for some reason. See, it's the body, the hands and the eyes and all that stuff, they're fine. But Who knows? That's weird. Maybe they'll fix it one day. I do recommend people just just Google Flash to video, and there's plenty of companies that sell you know ways of recording the playback of the SWF. All right. What else to talk about for this particular part? We'll move on and do some other stuff. We'll try to speed things up a bit too. People ask me why I don't do a tutorial that's just 2 or 3 minutes of animation. Well, because 25 frames takes an hour. But yeah, let's just save this. Let's close it down, and I will see you guys back here momentarily for part 2 and onwards.